can keep it looser too. You know what I mean? Just to not have to deal with the potential of it getting too tight. Respect. And like this one was really starting flat, I should be connecting a bit. I'm a big call to not being ready to go to company's worst. The auto caption. Yep. Isaac, I'm gonna hang up and I'm gonna call Isaac myself too.
Please.
Okay.
Cool.
We're working on something.
Okay.
Fine tech, but as far as this room is concerned, I'm fine.
Okay.
Which lights do you normally switch on? Does that have one now? Is it the two on this side, two on this side?
I think that's fine. I mean, I saw we turned on the live stream and you looked great. So I think your light is good.
Because I have it on 6.
6 and 2. I think they pressed 6 and 2. Well, maybe I took but 6 and 2 is fine. All right, perfect. And the sound is good.
Yeah, the sound is good, but I have to read it to call captioning to make sure that they listen.
Oh, I see.
That's what I'm doing.
Do you know how much you want?
I think John hands up, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so I think maybe in 10 minutes we'll start.
Well, we should be done by then.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Just FYI, hot mic, so just keep it to a minimum. Hey guys, this thing is going to be starting in approximately 10 minutes, so let's try to speed things up as soon as possible. What the hell is this? Hey, who's this? AJ? Dante? Yeah, so are we done up there or are we still working on it?
We're still, we have two different people on the line. We're working on it.
All right, but you guys heard me, right? Okay, fair enough. I want to leave the room because reporters are already in here, and I don't want them seeing me in this position, doing what I'm doing. And plus, Raf is in here now, and he's giving me a look, probably indicating that they're probably on their way in. Ralph, what's up?
Can we turn off the lights until we actually start so you guys balance?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay,
we should be
thanks.
fine. So we're gonna cut off the lights for now until the begin to start. All right. All right. Cool. So you staying on phone with me, AJ? Okay, fair enough. Once they walk in here to turn on the lights, I'm leaving the room. Just FYI, fellas. I get it. Yeah. Once you cut on the lights, I'm out of your way.
Oh, okay, yeah, no worries. I'll go. We just didn't want it to be so hot in here.
Understand. Microphone check 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a test for captioning. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Should I continue, AJ? All right, that's fine. As long as they hear us, then I can get out of here. So I'm exiting. All right.
Sure, it is. Oh, wait. Oh, the window of air? Good.
No, no, yeah, the window units, the turning system.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you know what? I don't think we expected it. Like, it's project out of nowhere. So, we'll just like.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
We're kind of get to it.
want you right up here with me. Oh, and the pin looks so good. Okay. Oh, it's good to be in this room. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It is really great to see you all here. I mean that. Happy Thursday to everyone. I just want to first start by, thanking all of you who did reach out to me and give me kind words while I recovered from COVID. Thank you very much. I am feeling fantastic. I'm feeling great. I also just want to overlay this by saying that the pandemic is still very, very real. I'm really grateful to have been vaccinated, and that probably saved my life, but unfortunately, there were no vaccinations in March 2020 for my father, and that's how I lost him, due to complications of COVID about 2 years ago. So I'm very grateful for the vaccinations and the boosters. So if anybody in this room has not been vaccinated, and I believe all of you have, tell your friends, your family, and everybody that you love, get vaccinated and get boosted. Okay. I also want to speak to the tragic incident that occurred on Tuesday morning in Councilmember Avila's district. Like all New Yorkers, I was horrified, and I was deeply saddened when learning about what happened and what unfolded inside the subway station in Sunset Park. 10 people shot, nearly 24 people injured, and many people escaped the horrors of this act of violence. My heart is truly with them today, with their families and all New Yorkers who have been affected by this mass shooting. I'm really thankful to the NYPD, other law enforcement partners, and the everyday New Yorkers who helped lead to the apprehension of the person suspected of this horrible violence. While we won't know the full picture until we have all of the details, what we do know is the care that so many New Yorkers continue to show for one another. That's what's always prevalent in New York. The heroic acts by our neighbors in the aftermath of this incident helped people get to care and likely saved lives. We also know that many New Yorkers continue to be traumatized by violence in our city and communities, which has only been exacerbated by the impacts of the pandemic and added to the trauma it inflicted. Whether it's Tuesday's mass shooting in Brooklyn, the violence that occurred in other parts of the city later that night, last Friday's shooting that killed an innocent 16-year-old child in the Bronx, or the hate violence that's targeted our Asian American, Jewish, Sikh, and other communities, we must address the trauma that's left behind by it. Too often, we talk about the victims of violence and their surviving family members and communities, but we don't do enough to help people recover. When this trauma is left unaddressed, it only increases the likelihood that cycles of harm and violence continue. People's lives are further destabilized. It makes our communities less safe and undermines the strength of our city. We must address this. As a city, we have to do more to provide mental health, trauma recovery, and victim services to the survivors of violence. In the Council's preliminary budget response, we call for the creation of New York State's first trauma recovery centers, an innovative national model of victim services that reaches survivors who too often get left behind. These are our young people, our immigrant New Yorkers, communities of color, and unhoused New Yorkers who have been the victims of all types of violence. It's not so commonly known, but victims of gun violence, especially in communities of color, are often the least likely to receive victim services. Nationally, Black men under the age of 35 living in urban areas with annual incomes of $25,000 are more likely to be victimized than any other group. Yet, they are least likely to receive support from victim compensation programs that states operate to support crime victims. So the most harmed are the least helped. That needs to change. And trauma recovery centers can play an important role by providing community-based and culturally competent access points to help. Trauma recovery centers are growing in states across the nation, and we're working to bring the first ones in our state to New York City. By placing one in every borough, and even more in some boroughs, we can begin to ensure underserved victims of violence and their families are reached with trauma-enforced recovery support. Trauma recovery centers can provide the health and stability that New Yorkers need to address the trauma left behind by violence and stop cycles of crime and harm. We also know that there is significant work to be done at the federal level regarding the proliferation of guns that leads to so much of the harm in our city and across the country. There must be action taken to curb this mass distribution of violence. Here in our city, we have to employ smart safety strategies that include all stakeholders to keep New Yorkers safe. Making New York safer from violence requires a multidimensional approach. That's why trauma recovery centers and a focus on supporting survivors and communities is so important. It's a key piece of our public safety puzzle. There is also far more than we can do to prevent crime and violence before they occur by investing in communities' health and well-being, and so much of the council's preliminary budget response focused on these key investments, whether it's health and mental care, affordable, supportive, and sustainable housing, youth programs, homeless services, and cleaner and healthier neighborhoods. New Yorkers expect and deserve results, and that requires comprehensive approaches and investments that deliver a safer New York City. With that said, we can now move on to today's stated agenda. We will be voting on the following land use items. 98-18 Queens Boulevard rezoning will facilitate a new 15-story mixed-use building with approximately 158 housing units, 40 units of which will be permanently affordable. The council will be modifying the application to ensure the lower-income mandatory inclusionary housing options apply in Councilmember Schulman's district. Next, we are voting on two pieces of legislation regarding recent actions taken by the Report and Advisory Board Review Commission. Established by a charter amendment in 2010, this commission reviews reporting requirements established by local law and has the power, subject to the council's approval, to waive any requirement it deems no longer useful. Preconsidered resolutions sponsored by my colleague, Councilmember Sandra Ong, would disapprove the commission's recent waiver of the 9/11 response time report produced by the police department and the annual youth services report produced by the Department of Youth and Community Development. The resolution would also improve waivers of several other reports that are now outdated or redundant. Preconsidered introduction, also sponsored by Councilmember Ong, is a cleanup bill that removes language from the administrative code and charter that will be nullified by the passage of the resolution. And I now invite the prime sponsor of these bills, these resolutions, and chair of our Governmental Operations Committee, Councilmember Sandra Ong, up to the podium to deliver remarks. Councilmember?
Thank you. I'm honored and proud today to join Speaker Adams and my colleagues to vote on my first two bills since becoming City Council member. Both the public and lawmakers need accurate information to make sure that government is working effectively, and annual reports are a critical way for the public to ensure that we in government are being held accountable. In a year that has seen increasing concerns for public safety and the effect of COVID-19 on our youths, the City Council today is passing a resolution to require the city to continue to provide the council with annual reports regarding 911 operational times and youth services. This will help ensure that our constituents, good governance groups, and legislatures have a full picture when determining the best allocation of resources within government. And I thank my colleagues for supporting the passage of these bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you very much for your leadership, Council Member. We will also be voting on three finance resolutions today. The first is an expense budget modification that represents proposed movements of approximately $1.85 billion in city tax levy funds within and among city agencies. It reflects $1.1 billion in new federal funding received since the November plan and redistributes some of the program to eliminate the gap savings towards new deeds. The second is a revenue budget modification that seeks to recognize $1.94 billion in new revenues. These revenues, when combined with a $380 million excess current year reserves and $400 million in the prior year payables will furnish a total of $2.77 billion to be added to the budget stabilization account to prepay expenses in fiscal year 2023. The third is a transparency resolution setting forth the new designation and changes in the designation of certain organizations receiving local, aging, anti-poverty, and youth discretionary funding, and funding pursuant to certain initiatives in the budget. Now, we will take on-topic questions first. Are there any?
Could you talk about how much funding are you seeking for the trauma recovery centers? How many would there be?
Well, right now, we're looking for at least one in every borough, and probably a few more for those boroughs that are in further need. We're still evaluating the costs, so we'll get back to you on that.
Is that something that the federal government might cover with stimulus funds?
It's possible. We're still looking into it. Thank you.
With those trauma centers, are there bills associated with that need to be introduced? Could you describe kind of the process, and do you have specific neighborhoods in mind within the 5 boroughs?
Well, the neighborhoods would certainly reflect those neighborhoods that have been hardest hit with instances of violence. I think that we know the boroughs that have been hardest hit, the statistics would bear that out. As far as anything else, as far as legislation, again, we're still looking into that. This is still a new process for us, but we firmly believe that New York would benefit tremendously from these centers.
Tangentially on topic, if I might, in that you guys do land use items, and so that's technically housing. The Ring Guidelines Board staff put out its recommendations today, recommending that 2-year leases be increased by as much as 9%. What do you make of that?
I have to look into that. I have not seen that information, so we can come back and revisit that once I've taken a look at what you've taken a look at.
And just the idea of a 9% hike on a 2-year lease in the midst of everything going on, is that something you would, on its face, be in favor of, or would you oppose?
Well, truly, again, it's something that I have to look in depth at. We would never want to look at something that would potentially be a hardship for New Yorkers, though.
Anything else for on topic? Okay, we move on to off topic.
Okay?
Yesterday, you put out a statement saying there needed to be a serious review of what did and didn't work following the incident with the shooter. I guess, what is that going to look like?
Well, again, what a horrible tragedy to happen to New York. We need to take a look at specifically ways that we keep the public safe. I think that we really need to hone in on what worked as far as the MTA is concerned, what worked in the subways, what types of precautions were taken or are taken on a day-to-day basis to protect New Yorkers in the transit system. We'd like to take a look at the cameras, particularly to evaluate what cameras worked. We know that there are, at least 10,000, we're told, I believe, that are in the system. But we need to take a look at, what's working and what isn't working, some of the things that we can do around the system to prevent anything from happening like it happened on Tuesday. Thank you.
With regard to that same incident, the mayor has talked about exploring the use of gun detection systems. Again, maybe it was an MTA implementation issue, but the council does have some oversight of the NYPD's use of surveillance technology. I'm curious what do you think, about the expansion of surveillance tools in response to this, and generally, as the mayor has discussed, as part of his strategy to fight gun violence, his recognition of those kinds of tools?
Yeah, thank you, Annie. I think that we need to take a look at an overall approach, not just something that's reactive. I'm certainly not aware of all of the technology, but what I do know is that we need to take more preventative measures, not just things that are reactive to what's going on. We need to prevent the gun violence from happening before it happens. And I've been touting this all week long to anyone that will listen. I still firmly believe that the iron pipeline should be examined and taken a lot more seriously than it has been in the past. Again, guns are not manufactured by these 15-year-olds that are running around like it's, like it's the Wild Wild West out there. So we need to take a look at who and how these guns are being trafficked into our city and how to prevent that.
On the topic of crime, major crime in the city is up some 40%. We're talking about the importance of taking more aggressive steps, or what sort of steps in order to better stem the flow of guns in the city? Let's just start, if we can start with that. What isn't being done that you want done?
Well, again, stemming the flow of guns into the city,
Yeah.
it's a tremendous undertaking. Again, it's something that we have to take a look at this on a multifaceted view. We can't just take a look at locking people up. What are we doing to prevent that from happening in the first place? As far as the city council is concerned, we are focused on prevention, of violence before it ever happens. That's where we want to be. We want to be in a place of prevention into a place of reaction. So our stance, first and foremost, are going to be those policies, particularly the ones that we're working through in the budget, to get to the place of prevention instead of where we are now, and that is reacting. That is reacting now. What do we have to do? We now have to jail folks. We got to rehabilitate folks, and everything else in between. We've got to figure out who these folks are that really do have these guns, that are touting them throughout the streets. So our stance still is prevention.
Violent crime's up some 40%.
Mm.
And the mayor was asked about this yesterday in the midst of everything. You obviously had the horrific shooting on the subway, but there were a dozen other shootings that day. And he offered this as an answer, which was, he was asked about shootings, the other dozen shootings in the city, like what is the city doing to get that in hand? And his response was to basically sort of pin it on liberal protesters. He said, if Black Lives Matter, then the thousands of people I saw out on the streets when Floyd was murdered should be on the streets right now, stating that the lives of these Black children that are dying every day matter. We can't be hypocrites. Is the mayor trying to dodge a policy failure, or what do you make of the mayor's answer?
Well, I certainly don't speak for the mayor. I never would, because I can't. What I will say, though, is that people who believe Black Lives Matter care about Black lives. Period.
Yeah. And so him saying, like, I guess trying to say that the policies advocated by the protesters are in some implicit way helping to fuel the violence by undercutting police officers. What do you make of his argument?
Well, again, I can't speak for the mayor.
Sure.
But what I can say is that we definitely do have to take everything into consideration. Again, policies are what the council is focused on. I can't speak for protesters or anybody else who chooses to protest for one thing and does not choose to protest for something else. What I do believe is that we are all stakeholders in this issue and in this gun violence epidemic, and it's something that we all need to take a step up to try to prevent together.
But as the council speaker, you have a powerful forum. You help to set the budget, which dictates a lot of policing policy. You have the mayor making these statements. You're the only real check on mayoral authority when it comes to policing matters. What do you make of this answer? I realize you can't speak for the mayor. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to respond to this.
Well, again, our response is in our budget. This is what we are working on right now. We're working on undertaking, a budget of what, $100 billion right now. That is going to be some of the undertaking in our conversations around the budget, not necessarily a statement that a mayor may make yesterday, today, or tomorrow.
I wanted to ask you about this situation with Brian Benjamin. And, the governor said that, in appointing him, that she thought at the time the process was sound for vetting him. Meanwhile, before all that happened, there were stories galore about problems, ethical problems regarding Benjamin. And I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are on this whole situation. I mean, she's in a tough spot now and is going to have to figure out who her next lieutenant governor is going to be, and it all kind of seems like it could have been avoided.
Well, I can certainly concur. The governor is in a tough spot right now. As far as the former lieutenant governor is concerned, it's unfortunate, but I believe that he made the right decision to step down.
Do you think the governor should have done a better job of vetting him?
That I can't say. That would be up to the governor and her advisors.
Well,
Well, I can speak as a black lawmaker. I can also speak as a parent to that. And I believe that parents should know the whereabouts of their children. They should know what's going on with their children. And, you know, as a parent, as a mother and a grandmother, I recommend to my own children, you know, to know what's going on in your household, know what's going on with your children, because you are ultimately the one responsible for their behavior. So again, while I can't speak or don't speak for Mayor Adams, you know, speaking for myself and having experience in raising children, and, you know, my advice absolutely is parents need to be involved in the lives of their children.
Did you search your kids' backpacks when they were?
I'm not going to tell you that. They might know my secrets. No, we, honestly speaking, we didn't have to. And I can tell you that, you know, when we raised our children, we really didn't have to. My children understood where we were coming from as parents. And my husband and I, we were the type of parents that held family meetings. You know, we worked really, really hard to raise our 4 children in a blended family. And we held family meetings. And we had that kind of open air, you know, within our family. We were not perfect by no means. And we did go through some things that parents go through with their children. But we did not have the need to do those searches. We did other things instead.
Such as, I mean, advice you
I'll tell you later.
Sure. Thank you. If I could follow up on Elizabeth's
Sure.
question. We're 100 days into your speakership, we're 100 days into the mayor's mayoralty. Violent crime is up 40%. We have, you know, stories about a dozen shootings a night, more regularity than I think any of us would like. What should we read into, like, how would you, you know, is the administration having successes? You know, is the crime strategy working? Do you assess it as, you know, do you assess what's going on right now as a successful policy?
What I do assess right now is a time that is unprecedented than any other leaders, be it the mayor or the speaker, in having to govern and lead in the midst of a pandemic right now and struggling to get out of a pandemic and everything, all of the residue that this pandemic has caused us now. So I certainly do not consider anything that we've done as a failure. I consider everything that we've done as a process and living through this process and going through something that's unprecedented. So, you know, again, we're looking towards the future. We're having very, very difficult times in New York, as we are across the city, by the way. So I don't necessarily look at things in a vacuum. I look at things on a broad base. The cause and effect for me in leadership is because of a global pandemic that has distressed and has stopped a lot of things that would have gone forward 1,000,000-fold had we not lost over 2 years of productivity in a lot of different ways in the city.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you.